Hello, I'm Kim Justice. I don't know if that's my real name or it's actually my YouTube name. Did you want to come onto YouTube and talk about the Commodore Amiga with me?
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our new episode 2 of Just Another Retrocast.
Hey, guess what, Chris?
What?
I watched something.
Did you?
Now I'm going to interrupt you by playing you this.
What is it?
This is music from the 1980s.
It is the best machine.
This is a
that
man
is around
talking
anywhere in the world. The professional
about
machine of the future.
the greatest video game machine ever made. Incumbent guitars.
Hang on, wait. Greatest computer ever made.
How would I describe it?
Atari ST.
Awesome. Skyrocket. Only Amiga makes it possible.
Only Amiga
Okay.
makes it possible. Only Amiga.
Makes it possible. Oh, wow.
Screens for deluxe paint on the video.
I'm an ex-copy man.
Yeah.
That was a great bit of music.
So guess what?
What?
Heard of a documentary called From Bedrooms to Billions?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, it came out in 2014.
Yeah.
Oh, is it
It's
that?
about the
Is it
British
that old?
video game industry.
Okay.
It's really good. You need to watch it.
Okay.
They did a follow-up to it.
Was that a recent follow-up?
Yeah, it came out last year.
Okay.
Called, and I've only just got around to seeing it. Called From Bedrooms to Billions, the Amiga Years. Original title,
Yeah.
Cool.
but it's bloody brilliant.
So we're going to talk about Commodore Amiga, are we?
Should we just talk about the Commodore Amiga for 45 minutes?
Yes, please.
Cool. Let's do it.
Yeah, so we've had the Only Amiga song. That was recorded on the Commodore Amiga.
Was it
Was it?
recorded on a Commodore Amiga?
Really?
I think that's the whole point of it.
Okay, a friend
I
of
think
mine
it's-
used to do quite a lot of music on his Commodore Amiga
Do you
a
know,
while back. Mr. Martin Revell. Do you remember him?
Martin Revell.
Hello, Martin, if you happen to be listening. I've still got one of your tapes, actually, kicking around here. Foot Tappers and Headbangers, I think it's called. And he did, like, remixes of Red Hot Chili Peppers and stuff. And
Brilliant.
using his Commodore Amiga. I had no idea how he did it at the time.
Good man. No,
Yeah.
I've got a bit of a history on that one.
Oh, have you?
Yeah.
Okay, tell us. Do it.
Well, I got signed up in a band many moons ago, and our main programming and sequencing was all Amiga.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, what
Yeah.
was the band?
Oh, we didn't even end up releasing in the end. It
Right.
was ridiculous. There was arguments over the band name and everything, and we met up with members of the press and things like that, and it was all just a bit of an embarrassment.
We're planning on releasing some music, but we've not got a name. We keep arguing.
Well, no, we had names, and the manager decided he wanted lots of really. I don't mean this as a flip off comment, just a flippant comment, but he really wanted really gay boy band names. I don't know if that's any reflection on
Do you know
the
what
band I
was
was
actually
in,
going to
but
call your band the Grid Gang?
the grid
I was
that's
just
better than what he
chuck
wanted.
The name in saying it would be the Grid Gang.
That's better than what he
because
wanted.
I just went Manchester synth pop
Yeah.
Commodore Amiga and went, it's just going to be the gayest thing that ever.
Yeah. It was synth pop. It was we were late. This is
were you up north at the time?
yeah, not a big title to live up to, but we were the next new order.
Right.
Yeah, so that's a bit of a pedestal to be put on for a start. You're going to fall fairly far, but the band was originally, we were going to be called Redshift, but he said nah.
It's quite a cool name, that, actually.
Yeah,
I
it's
like that.
it's the final phase of a dying star, isn't it? And I thought, yeah, I like that Redshift.
No, it's not. It's
Is it not? I thought it was.
It's
It's one of, isn't it?
It's what they use to measure. It's what they use to measure how far a galaxy is away.
Ah, there you go.
Because
Well,
when galaxies are expanding,
yeah.
the universe is expanding, so they measure the stretch of the light wave.
The universe
Nice.
is expanding. And
That's
expanding.
pretty layman.
Yeah.
And only as much as Brian Cox has ever explained it to me, but that's basically it's the shift in the light wave because the universe is moving further away from.
Well,
each
I
other.
liked it. Maybe that's why he didn't. Maybe it was thought too too wordy and what have you. And he wanted to go for chicken, which is the name for Lebanese rent boys that like to get fisted. Oh, get fisted for money anyway. I said no. He said yeah. I said fuck off.
Should have
And
just gone with Get Fisted.
we should have done get fisted. Might have got work. Yeah,
Get
might
Fisted
have.
for money.
Anyway, we walked and we set up something else. But anyway, it's not about That's not. But we wrote everything on the Commodore Amiga. We used to use Octamed or what was the other one? People Pro Tracker.
Cool.
I
Everyone
think
loved
Pro
them.
Tracker was the one where I just recorded. I just reprogrammed Axel F
Yeah,
for my GCSE music.
That's where
and
everyone
got a
starts
U
off.
because
Great.
it was an original piece of music. Yeah. And I think I might have already found it half programmed on the Amiga as well.
You had what?
I submitted it as my GCSE music piece.
Brilliant.
Of work, yeah, and I got a U, which is ungraded.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't an original piece, and I might have already found it half finished on the Commodore Amiga.
That's brilliant. You probably
in the
also got
classroom.
downgraded massively because writing and programming isn't music. You need to play a recorder.
Yeah, or hit xylophones and read sheet music. Yeah,
That's what it is.
Yeah, to be honest, I'm not kidding anyone. I'm like the least musically talented person I know.
Don't knock yourself, mate. When I was at school, my music teacher said to my parents, when you have the parents' evening, he just sat them down, sighed, and said,
went, he needs to be in a band called Chicken about Lebanese rent boy fisting.
worse than that, he just went, well, it's fair to say your boy's never going to be a musician. He's useless.
He's in a band now.
Yeah. I'd love to see him say, oh, I'm on the third album now. So, yeah, love that.
What's
Thanks
the
for
current band?
Roll Tape.
Roll Tape.
Roll Tape, but we've got another sideline that's yet to be announced.
Called
soon.
Chicken Fist in Lebanese Red Shift, motherfuckers.
That's the one.
So
Chicken
a
Reborn
roll tape,
2.
A roll tape on like Facebook and stuff.
We are on. We're on a lot of TV at the moment because we've gone to. We've
They're
avoided.
not like a band with like morals and character and fibre where they're trying to, make,
Carve out.
you know,
we're too old for this.
write a single that goes to number one.
We're
and
too old for that.
Not be Ed Sheeran. They're
No.
just writing music.
We're on
that
Crime
they
Watch an
sell
awful
to
lot.
television.
Have you really been on Crime Watch?
Oh,
recently?
loads, yeah. And O.J. Simpson's the O.J. Simpson tapes. That documentary on that and
Okay.
a few other things and some
the really
Australian
long
movies and
ESPN
things.
one.
Weird stuff.
Sorry,
Cool.
with the O.J. Simpson, the one that the really long ESPN series.
No, unfortunately not. No, it was the
The people
2-hour
was-
documentary about
right.
the secret tapes of OJ. His confessions and stuff. There's a whole sequence where it's probably quite possibly the darkest scene in the whole documentary, and they play the footage of where he's driving. He's on the run. He's on the run, and they've got the live footage, and they're filming him, and he's on the run for hours in his car.
Yeah.
And then he pulls up and threatens to blow his own brains out in his car.
Yeah.
We got the soundtrack for that.
Yeah.
That's us.
Do you know
So-
their band it suits that sort of music in the same way as when you listen to the first Left Field albums, parts of it just make you think of heroin addicts in Glasgow.
Oh
Right.
yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, we're cheery.
I should check
Anyway,
that out.
so back to the Amiga. That's what we want.
Anyway, this documentary was bloody brilliant. And while we'll touch on this while we were talking about music on the Amiga. The Atari ST
Yep.
was better at music because it had
No.
MIDI ports.
No.
It had what
Apparently
MIDI ports.
it was
No.
better at music. It had MIDI ports.
No.
That's all I'm going to say about the Atari ST.
No.
Other than Sir Peter Molyneux, I think he's got a knighthood now. Anyway, Peter Molyneux, the amazing game designer of Populous, Syndicate, Powermonger, Black and White,
Classics.
games like that. He said on this documentary, he was like, yeah, the only thing I'll say about the Atari ST is it was a bit shit. And he literally just was like, yeah, it was just a bit shit.
It was.
Yeah.
That's a fair diagnosis, I think.
So what else can you tell us about the Commodore Amiga, Ross?
Well, who had a Commodore Amiga?
I did.
I had
Big
an
time.
Amiga CD32, which may be cheating, but anyway.
Still good. Still
I-
good.
Got a CD32.
Yeah, I saw that actually at your place just recently.
I've got one.
It made me go.
And
"Ooh."
for anyone who wants to play Amiga games really easily, this is the pro tip you want.
Yep.
Get CD32 because you can still plug a keyboard and mouse into it and a joystick. Yeah. There's these CDs out there. You'll probably find them on Pirate Bay, and there's about 5 of them. And when you've got all 5 of these CDs, basically they boot to a special menu, and pretty much every Amiga game ever is on them.
Right.
And it's a real good way when you just want to set up the Amiga and just play a few games. It's probably not the best way to emulate it, or probably the best way to play them, but if you want to just, like, if you came round, it's a real easy way for us to just play a load of Amiga games.
Yeah.
And because
So-
they're all there with their names and little screenshots and stuff. Oh, you go. Because I can't remember the name of this Cyanosis game which was the sideways scrolling shooter where you were there.
Epidja?
No, Epidja's the insects.
Wasp
in
and
it.
Bee, yeah.
Yeah.
Fucking
So
love
what's
that.
the one where you just play the owl from their?
Oh, the Sagnosis owl.
Oh yes, I remember that.
So I know games, but I forget their names.
Yeah, I forgot that one.
Like what's the little jetpacky game with where it's sideways on and you're in your little ship and you have to go out onto the planet. And it's really fucking good.
Exile.
See, I forget the name, but I just know it's a super fucking brilliant.
What do you do in
game.
Exile? What's it look like?
There was 2 versions of it. I don't know why they revamped it, but there was a real basic version, and I personally preferred that. It was really low, well, not low budget graphics. It was really basic graphics.
Right.
Basically, you start off. I could never complete it, but it's a puzzler type of thing. You're trapped in your ship,
Right.
on this planet face, and you need to make these repairs.
Right.
And there's obviously things scattered around the planet which you're going to find useful, and you have to journey out, and you've only got so much fuel and so much oxygen before you have to go back to your ship and refuel.
Okay.
You know when you
Um,
talk about games and they're better, they sound better than they actually are.
Right.
this
there's some
one
of that-
sound
there's
this
some of
one
that-
plays much
There's
better.
some of that in what Paul just said, but it's also a really good game.
Yeah, it's just
Okay.
incredible.
So anyone who
It's
wants,
just atmosphere, hasn't it?
like, this is a bit of a deep cut, and not a lot of people will get this, but if you've ever played a game that's pretty modern called Terraria, it's basically Terraria, but you're trapped on a planet.
yeah, that's
you
a
played
fair.
Terraria?
Yeah, Terraria is fair. I think that's a fair. That's a fair comparison.
Cool.
But-
Okay.
But what, 20, nearly 30 years ahead of its time.
So these CDs then that have got the complete back catalogue of Amiga games. So we're talking like everything from, I don't know, early games. I don't know, stuff as simple as like Dizzy, all the way up to
Not sure if Dizzy's on that one.
Yeah, but there's a Dizzy. They brought out the easiest way to play Dizzy is for the CD32 they brought out the like complete Dizzy.
okay.
So you just download the ISO of that.
So do they look like their Commodore 64 games?
no,
or
they look like Amiga games. That
Right.
was the great thing with the Amiga. Like Treasure Island Dizzy, is the best version of any Dizzy game ever.
yeah.
Like, it just looks so much better on the Amiga.
I
There's
only
this
ever
weird
played it
thing
on
with the
Commodore
Amiga
64, I
is
think.
it looks so much better than the PC for quite a long while. Probably, let's say the Amiga sort of existed between 85 and 95, realistically,
Right.
in this country and the rest of Europe.
That's quite a
'Cause-
long run for
yeah.
for one system.
It,
isn't
a
it?
little bit longer actually for graphics.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of production studios. I think was it Deep Space
Yeah,
Nine used
no,
it for their
Babylon 5.
Babylon 5. That was it.
The
They
thing
used
is,
the Commodore Amiga.
Commodore Amiga for a lot of their graphics.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
yeah, because they were super expandable. Like the Amiga had a very long, slow death.
Right.
Because there was plenty of unsold units when Commodore went bust, and people still kept building these accelerator cards for them. So you can get these accelerator cards, and I'd stopped having an Amiga by then. This is just stuff that I've learnt over the years. You can get like these accelerator cards for Amigas, and they'll just sell for 300-400 quid on eBay because they just turn them into these like Frankenstein machines that run software that you just couldn't even run on a PC back then. Like
Right.
there's a version of Alien Breed, like a 3D version of Alien Breed,
Yeah.
Is that the one
that you can only play with one of these super shit hot graphics accelerators.
So Alien Breed, is that the one that's like Golden Axe?
Alien Breed was
Gauntlet,
like
you're thinking.
Gauntlet, top
Like
down.
Gauntlet top down.
Right. No, I'm thinking of a different game then.
Oh, you're thinking of Alien Syndrome,
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
the co-op, the coin-op,
Yeah.
where one of the third player, it was like the third player was a robot, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, that's literally, it's just golden. It's like Golden Axe is Jumanji,
Yeah. Absolutely.
and Alien Syndrome's Zathura, or whatever it's called.
That's right.
Listen
That's
to
a
our
reference
other
to our
podcasts.
previous podcast. Yeah.
We might be getting ahead of ourselves actually here. So, have you got any rundown since you watched the Bedroom at the Billions? Have you got a basic rundown of the history of the Amiga and how it came
sort
about?
of a little bit, right?
Go for it. Give us the
Basically,
basics.
This guy left Atari because the video
Atari
game
was shit.
collapse happened.
Yeah.
Is this the
Yeah.
guy that said that the Atari was shit?
No, that's different. And he started building a chip, and they started a little company called Amiga, and then they built the first Amiga, but still in breadboard form. Do you know what I mean? Where they physically build the circuit board
but not
They build the
outer,
chip.
Yeah.
But they build it massive with full-size components before they turn it into silicon and shrink it and put it in a
Right.
device.
Okay.
So they got that up and running, took it to a trade show, ran out of money, and short version is Commodore bought them, but as Commodore were buying them, Commodore fell out with the guy who ran Commodore, and he went to work for Atari.
Oh dear. Right.
So it was almost like
That was a bad move for
there
him,
was
wasn't
a
it? Really.
change of personnel. Like the people who worked at Atari went to work at Commodore, and people who worked at Commodore went to work for Atari. And basically the Atari ST came out when it was like they just stole. I think they just stole the design basically
Of the ST.
Yeah.
Right.
No, they stole the chip designs for the Amiga.
Right.
And then just turned it into the Atari ST. But it was shit. It had like 512 colours or something, or 256 or something stupid.
Right.
And the Amiga had what? Did it have?
Oh, it was fucking
4096.
ridiculous. At the time, it
colours.
was, it was by far the most superior machine out there, graphically. At that time, it just blew everything else out of the water.
Just down to the genius of the people that developed it. isn't it?
Yeah.
I remember when Deluxe Paint 4 came out. I still can remember this. Is
Deluxe Paint. Yes.
Deep
If,
Paint, yeah.
When you used Deluxe Paint 4, you could animate. I don't know if you could probably animate in older versions of it, but I think D Paint 4 might have been the first one to support the full colour range.
Right.
And I remember, and I had a 1 megabyte Amiga, which was not to be sniffed at in the early days of Amiga, because they initially only had 512k.
Mm-hmm.
But
Before
you
the
need-
1200, yeah.
Yeah. And I could do 2 frames of animation in 496 colours. And I still remember that. It's a weird little thing to remember.
Did I have a copy? Am I dreaming this? Or did I have a copy of Deluxe Paint for my bloody Spectrum 128K?
You wouldn't have had D Paint, but you probably would have had Paint Package. There were several out there for the Spectrum.
I remember getting
probably
one
called
and
8
thinking,
paints, which was referring to the 8 colours available in
Yep.
the Sinclair Spectrum. They're not even nice colours.
Don't even get me started. I love the Spectrum.
Yeah, same here. I have a certain amount of fondness.
Beautiful machine.
My 128K was the James Bond action pack with a light gun.
I think, which one was mine? Did I have the Batman pack?
No, it was the Amiga that had the Batman.
The Batman, yeah, the Amiga. It was a Flight of Fantasy, wasn't it? And it came with Batman, Rainbow Islands,
Fuck me, that's a really good game, by
Yeah,
the way. Rainbow
that is.
Islands is a
Escape from the Planet of
absolutely
Robot
incredible
Monsters.
game.
and F-29 Retaliator.
The other thing with Rainbow Island, it might have been one of the first games that came out that sort of time that it wasn't arcade perfect, but it's near as damn it arcade perfect.
Right.
Oh yeah, I remember seeing it in a when you went down to the local. You just,
That and like New Zealand Story.
yeah, and you just watch it. New Zealand Story is pretty much the
New Zealand
arcade.
Story
It's
was
just
great, wasn't it?
fantastic.
I remember that coming out at around the same sort of time as, was it North versus South?
Yeah, that's another great
That's
game.
another classic. Yeah.
And
Yeah, I
they
remember
looked
North
phenomenal.
versus
And I
South.
remember getting copies of both of them for my Spectrum.
Yeah,
Thinking,
well,
this is
should we
not really worth it.
We are listing games at the moment that were absolutely brilliant, but as far as I'm aware, didn't come out for the American market on the consoles, did they?
Yeah, I think they did, but again, we've got this problem where there's this weird disparity between growing up in America and growing up in Europe with regard to video games.
Yeah, there's certain titles though that just could never have possibly been made.
No, just trust me. There's
Just couldn't
stuff
have
like
worked.
what they would do. The NES would have its own special version of games quite often,
Right.
But they would also be like better, like Bionic Commando, completely different game on the
Yeah.
NES.
Is that the one with the little hand that you could shoot up into the tree and pull yourself
Yeah.
up? Yeah.
Completely different on the NES, but in some ways better because it was almost like a Metroidvania sort of. There wasn't a direct. It wasn't just a coin-op conversion. It was its own game.
Yeah, but I'm thinking more on the lines of, was it the Lucas Art games, Lucasfilm? So you had like came from the desert and
Yeah, like things like that.
things like
Yeah,
that.
they
You could
definitely
never
only-
get, and they were just
They
a
probably-
unique form of gaming.
I couldn't
that
even tell you what was it? CinemaVision was it?
It was CinemaVision.
Made all the games like Rocket Ranger, and it
Yep.
came from the desert. I don't know if they ever came out on anything. They probably
don't
only
think they-
came out on Amiga, PC, and Atari.
Yeah.
And
And the best versions at the time.
At that point, especially in the 80s and the early 90s, unless you had silly money, the best version was always the Amiga version.
Yeah.
I remember
even compared
actually.
to PC. A lot of PC back then didn't have. A lot of people didn't have a sound card.
Right.
A lot of people didn't have a graphics card that would do more than 4 colours. So, like most of the time, you see Monkey Island on PC looks shitter on PC than it does on Amiga.
Right.
But then you go Monkey Island 2. By then, a lot of people were starting to get sound cards and graphics. I remember my first PC had 2 different graphics accelerators in them for doing 2 totally different things.
Right. Was that normal?
No, it wasn't. One was like for doing. It was before the 3D accelerators came out, and it was like I had like one graphics card in that gave it 4 mega RAM, and then another graphics card that gave it like another 2 mega RAM. Now we got graphics cards with like 12 gigabytes.
It's
of RAM
mental,
on
isn't
it.
You say about sound cards actually, like I remember walking into like Curry's back in the day when they'd have a display of like a working computer.
Just still today, the best place to go and buy and look and play with video games is Boots, mate.
Really?
It was so good.
It was good. I remember going and playing Mario in Boots, but that's a different story. But I remember going into Curry's and seeing a demo of Dune, the game, playing, and like it was the opening sequence with the woman's face talking about the spice and everything, and
Just spice melange.
just remember being blown away and like,
Yeah.
wow, it's got full talking,
Yeah, that's a good
audio.
game. That.
and yeah, Dune is great, isn't it?
Dune 2 is a good game as well.
Fair enough. And then years later, after I'd had consoles for a little bit, I got a CD32, and one of the games that came with it was a game called Diggers, and it was like a mining game. You'd have to dig out gems and things, but it was all done in kind of real time sort of thing. So you'd set your team off digging in a certain place,
Yeah.
and you'd have to like set up other team members to defend because somebody else would come along and kill the guys that were digging, like lemmings, sort of
Lemmings
thing,
and worms and
to
that
a
sort of
degree,
angle. Yeah,
but you only had a
but
team of
different.
like maybe 5 people or something like that.
Yeah.
And yeah, I remember just leaving it, like maybe me and my friend were just having a chat or something, and in the background the computer went onto its demo, and fuck me, it spoke, and it was like the whole story of like how these people got to this planet and everything, and we were like completely mystified.
It's
Just
mind
like,
blowing
wow.
at the time, wasn't it? It was
It
just
actually
those things
talks.
were mind blowing.
I suppose that I'd never experienced that because I'd never had a console that was like CD based before. So Amiga could do that though as well, could it? All the way before
Yeah, I mean,
CD technology.
The good thing about the Amiga, right from the start, it was really good at dealing with samples and coping with samples. So, I mean, that's going. Just briefly mention again.
And it also had, I think it had, again, I'm just remembering this from the documentary, I think it had 4 sound channels.
Yeah,
Right.
So you could record a sample on a sound channel.
but they could be split again into
Yeah.
8, so you could get a huge amount. That was in the later part of the day, but you could get 4 separate sound channels. Yeah, they were just phenomenal. You could handle samples just brilliantly.
Right.
But again, in the documentary, somebody talks about because you've got a lot of room to experiment, but you've also got very tight parameters to work with it. And so, different musicians would do things different, like just writing music for video games. They would just do things different ways, so some guys would record a long sample,
Yeah.
of all the different sounds that they want in the game.
Right.
And then be able to write music in the other 3 channels by pulling from that long, high-quality sample.
Right. Clever.
Yeah, clever shit. But I'll just go. I just made a few notes because, we'll talk about them. But didn't know it could emulate a PC.
No,
'Cause
I
obviously
didn't.
that was so irrelevant.
It could
back then.
emulate the
right.
PC.
You could buy a board that turned it into a PC.
Right.
Just for doing the PC tasks of like spreadsheeting and stuff like that. Give you DOS. It would emulate MS-DOS.
Right.
It was that pokey.
I was going to say, for its time, that's incredible, isn't it?
Crazy.
I mean, MS-DOS didn't do much then. It was just command line, wasn't it? But still, there was a card you could get. Because it was still cheaper to buy one of these cards and put it in an Amiga than it was to buy a PC.
Would it have only worked in a certain model? Because there were several, weren't there? Didn't you have like there was a 500 plus?
It was 500.
Well, it started with the 1000.
Yeah,
Right.
It was the 500 was the machine that broke into people's houses because they managed to shrink a full-size computer. Like the 1000 is a separate box, separate screen, separate keyboard and mouse.
Right.
So they sort of bounced that they shrunk that, and then that's the one that everyone got.
Right.
And the first thing you did was buy another 512 mega RAM for it because half the games didn't run.
Right.
Generally, if you had to put that in, and it would either break the housing at the top or make it bulge. That's how you knew somebody had the upgrade, because the housing, the memory upgrade was generally too big.
I think, right, see, I've got a theory here. I'm fairly sure I know the answer to this because I bought mine second hand.
Yeah.
So mine had the 512 meg upgrade, but it was the proper Commodore 512 meg upgrade.
Right. There was a cheaper
So that
version, wasn't there?
And everyone else
ones.
buys third-party ones.
Third party.
Because all it was in those days was somebody like getting the RAM modules and soldering them onto a board and getting them just about to fit in the case.
Yeah.
Right, I see.
The other thing, when we installed ours, it was a common thing that most people did, because me and all my mates, we all had the Commodore Amiga, and you had to hacksaw a piece of your motherboard off to get it in. Yeah, shit your pants scary.
Wow.
And if you fucked it up, you fucked it up. That was 400 quid with a computer that you weren't going to get back. Yeah.
And you did
Yeah,
that.
and that 400 quid with, like, back then was a lot more than
Oh,
400 quid is
God,
now, isn't
yeah.
it?
Yeah, especially in the north of England. My dad sold his car to get me that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so...
Good on you. But yeah, so is that where the 500 plus came in? Did it already have this extra?
I think, yeah.
it was
I
a
think
600, wasn't it? Didn't it go to a
I
600?
think I think you're right. I think I can remember mine was a really early one because it had the 3 lights on it. The newer ones didn't have the 3 lights, and I
Right.
can't remember what the third light was for. Well, like I think you had your error light and your disc light and your power light. On mine was separate, but I think on the later ones, the LED was the 2 coloured LEDs were under one housing, and it just flicked over.
Right.
But yeah, it's a bit difficult because it's a long time ago. But I remember, like, when I bought mine, it was bought second hand. Like, my dad knew someone who was selling it, and I went over there, and I think we probably got it for like probably 500 quid because it had a gig. Didn't have a gig. Didn't have anywhere near a gig. Had the 1 megabyte. It had the 512 meg upgrade in it. It had a monitor, which was the shit back then. To have an Amiga on a monitor, like literally, my friends would come around and the games just looked better on the monitor.
Yeah,
Right.
they did.
Load of joysticks. The adapter. I had an adapter that let me plug 4 joysticks into it as well.
Right.
Couldn't tell you what it was. Had this amazing Naksha mouse, which was like a upgraded mouse that came with a copy of Cruise for a Corpse, another good game.
External drive.
And I had a second floppy disk drive,
Yeah.
which is the most important thing once games like Monkey Island came out.
A mate of mine had 4, and it was just...
Why would you have
Fuck
separate
me.
drives?
Because a lot of games, as they became bigger and bigger, and there was a lot more, a lot more content, a lot more data in them.
Right.
One standard 3-inch floppy disk wasn't enough to hold them, so you'd have 2, 3, 4. Some games got ridiculous, got up to 16 discs.
I remember that.
Yeah, just
What was that game which was really cartoony graphics? It was a it was an adventure game,
yeah.
but about you going to a video game competition. Again, these are like...
Oh, I don't remember.
But that was on about
but, yeah.
16 discs
Yeah.
because it had about 4 frames of animation on each disc, didn't it?
Yeah, it was just bloody.
But what you
stupid, some
found,
of it.
Chris, when you had 2 disc drives, there would be one disc that basically had the game engine on.
Yeah,
Right.
and then
And
the
so
other was
that
graphics.
disc
and
you would leave in, and you would end up changing your discs a lot less.
Right, I see.
Like somebody with a single disc drive would change their disc between sort of like every 3 screens in Monkey Island, but you would probably only change that disc. You would only change one of the... I think Monkey Island's on 4 discs. You would only change one of the 4 discs, like between islands.
Right.
But that's boring anyway. But talking about the Amiga I bought, it came with 2 of those massive double-sized 3.25-inch floppy disk containers with just every copied game ever, because that's all people did was copy games.
yeah,
I
good
mean,
old-
you still brought the odd game now and
yeah,
then,
if you could, but
but
generally
you
they were
genuinely, and
they-
it was just it wasn't a...
they were $24.99 when they are or 30 quid or something a
It
game.
was just it was just so sociably acceptable, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was X copy. Did you have X?
And
X
yeah,
copy
X
3 was
copy.
just the best
So
version.
there was nothing really in place to stop this from happening
You
either?
couldn't, once you cracked it, once
Yeah.
the software had been like, once they'd hacked the bit that stopped Xcopy working and made a copy of it, it would just proliferate.
Right.
A lot of them try to. They'd put certain bits of coding in there, but generally Xcopy would bypass that coding. But there were certain people, certain games, they didn't give a shit.
Right.
Couldn't be bothered. Did you ever have
A lot of
eSwap?
games they did try and combat piracy by putting the thing in the box that would be like a spin,
yes,
like a wheel. But people would just hack out the copy protection.
Do you
Right,
remember?
I see.
Do you remember the whole thing about it was RoboCop 3?
RoboCop 3 had a dongle.
A dongle.
Yeah? So people went out and they thought this is uncrackable. You had a physical bit of hardware. And so people went out and bought RoboCop 3, and then like a month later, it was just
It wasn't
RoboCop.
even a month. I think it was a week. Ridiculous.
It just had the what you don't understand is back then. What people don't understand now compared to back then is it was so easy. It was not easy because it's still a really hard thing to do. But the barrier to entry to you going into a bit of software and working out how it works and changing the way it works is a lot lower than it was then. Than it is now.
How would these copies and information about how to break these games, how would it get around?
Well, according to
internet.
the documentary, they had copy party. They literally had copy parties.
Really?
Well, it also sprung out on the back of the demo scene. So people would the demo scene was the scene that came out of people writing these little introduction things. You must have played Amiga games with copy protection on, where it comes up with this thing just from a completely different person.
So you'd have
and they would have an animation and the music and stuff, and they'd try and do it in the smallest amount of
Paradox was
RAM
one group,
possible.
wasn't it? You had Paradox, you had Angels, I think it was SLS.
But some of these guys went on to make, some of the guys who from the Amiga demo scene are the guys that started DICE, which are the people who make Battlefield.
Yeah.
Right, I see.
So these guys who were hacking these games and getting around all the coding and learning it all inside out, became huge
game developers themselves.
Yeah, huge.
But yeah, in the video there's footage of copy parties where there was PCs used to do LAN parties where you'd all get together because broadband wasn't a thing and play Quake.
Right.
Because you just get 100 people in a room playing it's easier to do play network games, isn't it, in the same room.
It daisy chain all the machines up.
Back in those days, they had these things called copy parties, and they literally would just go and everyone would copy each other's games. And there was a guy talking about how the police knocked on the door of this copy party, and the kids were stamping on their discs and throwing them out the window and stuff. And the copper was "Are you having a copy party in here?" And the mate was like, "Yeah," and he was just like, I'll be back in a half hour. Sort me out 5 or 6 of the latest games for my nipper at home. That's how socially acceptable it was at that point.
Right, okay. Wouldn't have happened if it were a drugs party.
No, they just happened in the fields those days.
I'll be
didn't
back
they?
in half an hour. Sort us out a couple of spliffs.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
my nipper. But going back to the copying games, some companies didn't even bother with the copy protection. Did you ever have a copy of eSwap for the Amiga? Did you?
Maybe.
Did you?
eSwap? Oh, I remember that.
eSwap
game.
by
That's-
Sega.
Okay, yeah, I remember that game.
That wasn't protected to the point you could just copy it straight from the original.
Right.
You could even just load up the animation frames. You could go into DPaint with your you could basically put the game, all the graphic frames,
Right.
into DPaint,
Right.
and fuck them up completely. So you
Right.
could give all the pump action shotguns cocks. So these
Okay.
guys are you can imagine what 15-year-old boys were going to do
Yeah, sure.
with this, and your big spunk bullets.
Because Leisure Suit Larry is just not enough.
So so you can save all this then back to, and as long as you didn't break the collision detection barrier, you could have whatever you wanted on that game.
Right.
Big spunky cocks firing all over the place.
Okay.
It was amazing. So you can there's all sorts of weird hacked versions out there of that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What was the most powerful home Amiga then?
1200 wasn't it? Oh no, it was
The-
2000, wasn't it? No, but that was right at the end.
Was there a 4000 as well?
Oh, there wasn't
But
there?
then there was this weird thing with the accelerator cards and that. And actually one of the best things you could do is they bought out for the CD32 a adapter that went in the back that had one of these accelerator cards in it, but it also gave you the full I/O ports of the Amiga.
Right.
So it actually gave you a full size. It gave you an Amiga, which you could put hard drive in. You had an accelerator, and you could plug a keyboard and mouse and everything into it. But you also had the CD.
Right.
But there's also CD32.
CD32 is technically the most powerful.
That was just an Amiga 500 in a
No, it's more powerful
in
than
a
that, isn't
hi-fi
it?
case,
Right.
and it could play CDs. It looked, like Panasonic did it with the GameCube. They did a version of the GameCube that could play DVDs, and Sony did it with one of the PlayStations where there was more like a multimedia focused.
Yes, I
but
remember
this
what
would
you
be
mean.
a thing that happened all the way through the 80s and all the way
The
through
Amiga
the 90s.
CD.
But CD32 was like a hi-fi shape. Like
No,
a
that
CD
was
player.
Amiga. That was the
Amiga-
No,
Amiga
sorry.
CD, wasn't it?
No, not the
There was Amiga CD
CD32.
and then there was
Have I been saying
CD32 afterwards.
CD32 the whole
Yeah.
time? What I meant is
The Amiga CD.
TV.
That was
it.
it.
Called.
CD
And that was
TV.
an Amiga. Sorry, forget everything I just said, but some of it is relevant. What I meant is this Amiga CD TV was an Amiga 500 in a fancy, nice black case, but it also had a CD drive. But I don't think it did anything. I'm not sure it did any. I'm not sure the CD drive worked with the Amiga.
Is
I
that
think it
still-
was more like making an Amiga the set-top box.
Yeah, didn't it take on... What was a really early version of digital video? It was really naff.
Well, you had video CDs.
I think
didn't
it was
you?
VCD,
VCDs.
wasn't it? It was sort of trying to tap
Which-
into that market that just...
Did Did something come out for the Super Nintendo for that? Or
No, it was
were
the
they
Sega, wasn't
popular
it?
On the,
Sega 30.
Sega 32,
wasn't
wasn't
that
it?
really weren't VCDs really popular on the first PlayStation as well in Japan? Because Japan
I
get
think in Japan.
Japan always go mad for like Sony's proprietary software formats, don't they?
Yeah.
And you could like get fairly low quality, depending on the length, movies as well, couldn't you, onto them? So yeah,
Yeah.
anything that people can use for piracy,
Mm.
they will, or
Yeah.
pornography, or both.
Yeah. Totally.
It's usually pornography, I think, isn't it? That's what usually leads when you get a new format.
Generally, yeah.
Pornography
Can we
is-
put porn on this? That's
Yeah.
what happened with the VHS. That's why Betamax
That's
failed.
why we've got Betamax in the end,
Because
because it was the
porn industry favoured.
yeah.
I'm fairly
VHS.
sure I remember seeing porn on the Amiga.
Yeah,
there
there
I
was.
saw porn on the Amiga.
I definitely remember playing strip poker games.
Yeah.
Yep.
Strip Poker 3. Brilliant. So bad it's good.
But yeah, those were the sort of games that I remember people sort of passing around at school, like in secret and stuff.
Leisure Suit Larry, do you remember that
yeah, although
series?
that wasn't really
It wasn't porn, but it was that adult themed.
adult humour.
Yeah.
Do you want to know one of the few things that I regret?
What's that?
I sold my Commodore Amiga
That's pretty bad.
to buy a Super Nintendo.
That's really
Wow.
And it's not bad. They're two very comparable products, but on reflection, I wish I'd have kept the Amiga.
bad. Mm.
Right.
None of the games would work now because of discs. But
But you've got a CD32.
and the only other thing I only sort of regret this as well. I sold my Nintendo 64 for a Dreamcast,
Right.
which in hindsight was a good deal, good idea, except for actually I was buying Nintendo 64 games right up until the end of the Nintendo 64. So I had loads of games that are worth lots and lots of money now.
Ooh.
Like the late Nintendo 64 games boxed are worth a few quid.
Yeah.
And then after that, I've never sold a bit of video game hardware.
Right.
Because what's the
So
point? It's worthless.
all the hardware you've got at home is all the original stuff, is
Yeah,
it, that
apart
you
from-
had
no,
for your own use?
yeah, like the Sega Saturn's not. The CD32 wasn't mine. But again, you know, when you get older and you go, oh, I've got money now to buy that thing that I didn't have when I was younger. That was where my CD32.
Yeah, I know
purchase
all
came
about
from.
that one.
And when I bought my first Cannondale bike as well, because they were so expensive when I was young.
Right.
Then when I could afford one, I went, I'll buy one.
Fair enough. So
Let's talk about games.
Okay.
Right, Another World. That was really good. I could just do this for ages.
Do you want to just do like favourite Amiga games?
Well, Another World's just had another revamp, hasn't it?
It's the guy who made it remastered it for 1080p. It's quite good. If
It
you can get
still
it on
stands today.
it's
doesn't
hard,
It?
but I can probably complete it without looking at a guide.
I used to be able to, not
I
anymore.
could probably do it. It's not very long. A lot of games aren't very
No,
long.
you could. No,
when you know
no.
how what made games long was they were difficult.
Yep.
And then once you worked out how to do it, you could do it quite quickly. And obviously, there's a whole thing about doing games really fast now, isn't there?
What was the
Like you have
one
speed
that wasn't actually a sequel to Another World?
But was basically
Flashback.
Flashback.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Completed that. And I wear that with a badge of honour because that was a hard game. That.
Okay. So was that the same sort of thing again? Wasn't actually very long.
I think it was a bit bigger than Another World. You
Right.
certainly couldn't chew through it because in quite the same manner as Another World.
I used to complete Another World in like 20 minutes. I used to, yeah.
My
That's the
Saluba.
feeling.
Yeah.
It's just still the best thing.
It's still there.
But it's such a great example. My Saluba. It's the only thing he says to you the whole game.
Yeah.
You're separated by, like, you're very rarely on the same screen together.
Yeah.
It's a good game though, isn't it?
It's
So
fantastic.
French.
And is there anybody out there who can translate that for us?
This is so French.
My
isn't it?
Saluba.
Yeah. What is it?
It just means this way, please.
Is it?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. It's like how Sims speak, isn't it? They go blah 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 blah. Blah. They don't talk. They talk Simlish.
Oh, I like to think somebody out there has written a whole bloody language for it.
Just based on that
Yeah,
one word.
just on that.
If it is one word.
Yeah, Flashback's really good. Flashback had a sequel actually,
Oh, yeah.
and it was 3D on
Yeah, I
the
remember that.
PlayStation.
Yeah.
I think it's quite bad.
Heart
it's
of
prob-
Darkness.
Don't know, but it's one of those games like Flashback looks cool now because of the hand drawn art.
Right.
Like the backgrounds were hand rendered, weren't they?
Yeah.
And then they had that really nice rotoscope style effect that like Prince of Persia had, whereas Flashback 2 was polygons.
Prince of what,
on
sorry?
Prince of Persia.
Prince of
Sorry,
what?
what's it called, Paul?
Persea, isn't it?
That's
Yeah.
the one. Prince
Yeah.
of Persia.
Prince of
Persia.
This popper stopper isn't working when I say Prince of Persea, is it? Yeah.
Maybe you've got it too close to the microphone.
Maybe I have. Hang on. There we go. That's better.
Right.
Anyway, yeah, Prince of Persia.
Yeah, that was a very good game as well. And the
That was-
second one
Was
was
that by
really
the? Did the guy who did Another World and whatever? Did they have anything to do with that?
good? No,
it's
I think
very
they just
similar art
stole
style,
the,
wasn't it? Yeah.
Just stole the like
Style.
Yeah.
the sort of rotoscoped animation. Yeah, like loads of. Prince of Persia 2 was really good, but I'm fairly sure the best version of that's the Super Nintendo version.
Never
But
played
then
it.
we're talking about the Commodore Amiga, so fuck Nintendo.
Is there any games though that are just like the consoles wouldn't have got, or do you know what I
Mate,
mean?
there'll be games that
No, I was
I
thinking that
think
you can
Speedball-
remember that were
like,
just Speedball 2 got a
probably
release.
came out on the Mega Drive, yeah.
It did, yeah.
But it doesn't matter because Speedball 2 is just so intrinsically
Yeah.
an Amiga game.
Yeah,
It's by the Bitmap Brothers. It had that really particular art style that they had. Every game they did
it was the
looked
sound
like
as well on that.
They somehow managed to make things look metallic with 4,096 colours.
Yeah,
In every game they made. I don't know how they did it.
they did a really
the sprites
good
were massive. They're beautifully drawn. Speedball 2 is just such a
Speedball
good game.
2. They did
Very
on
addictive.
the Mega
You can
Drive.
get it for iPhone, I think.
Can it?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you can get it for PlayStation. PlayStation did it, and they changed all the samples. It didn't work. Same with the
ice cream.
yeah. Well, that wasn't on there. And the Mega Drive, the Mega Drive version doesn't have all the samples again.
Well, just because it couldn't.
It just couldn't do it. So, and they got for any music buffs out there, it was Bomb the Bass again, Tim Simeon,
Right.
and I'm sure it's not how you pronounce his last name, but hey, and John Fox John Fox and the early days of Ultravox, and those two teamed up and produced the music for that. That was a piece written for that.
For Speedball.
For Speedball.
Huh.
They were doing a dance techno combo at the time. They wrote that just for Speed, and then they had input with all the other sound design in there, and it was just phenomenal.
Cool.
And that's the type of thing you'd get a lot of with the Amiga. You wouldn't generally get that with any other computer, or that sort of collaboration. You wouldn't get that, would you?
This is, I've always felt this, but it was reiterated to me in this documentary that it was the last time you could properly bedroom code a machine.
Right.
But it was powerful enough that it pushed boundaries and pushed people into the industry in such a way that it's as far as I'm concerned, it's the most important video game machine ever made.
Cool.
Just because of what has Western video games are the way they are because of what happened on the Commodore Amiga. Yeah?
That's fair enough. I remember it being like, I don't know, it was sat on a pedestal that I couldn't reach. Like, friends that had them, I was quite, I was stuck with a Spectrum. I couldn't get to it. We just didn't have the money. So, anyone that had one was quite lucky, in my opinion.
I was there with you for a long, long time.
Yeah.
I was late to the Spectrum, and everyone else was going up to the Amigas.
Right.
And it took me a little while to get the Amiga.
Yeah,
but
I didn't get
loved
mine.
It, yeah.
I probably, 1, I wasn't old enough. 2, I got it second hand.
Yeah.
3, it must have had 150 games already copied on it. So it would have been must have been knocking on 1988, 89.
Right.
So I'd have been like, I don't think I probably had one at middle school, and I didn't leave middle school until 1990, I don't think. But it's just the best.
I think I would have had quite a hard time convincing my parents that, I wanted this upgrade, but it only played the same games as.
Do you want
Oh no, we argued it's graphics package.
Yeah.
You can write music on it,
Yeah.
so it'll help me with my music classes and with my art classes.
Hey,
do
you want to hear a cool dad anecdote?
go on.
Because I'm just going to say exactly.
Well, I know what your dad.
I made
last week was very revealing about
Did you
your
cut it
dad.
up?
I made all of the same sounds as Paul was making then. Like, it's not just a video game machine. I need a computer, and the computer I need is a Commodore Amiga. Yeah, so all I did was play video games on it. That's why I don't have a degree or any high school qualifications worth printing on a CV. And I just didn't stop playing it.
So he didn't catch you playing Leisure Suit Larry and chop it up with a bandsaw?
No. Do you know what he did?
Okay.
I wouldn't do my homework, and one day he came in and I was sat there playing on my Commodore Amiga, and he ripped the power pack out of it, and the power packs are big in those days.
Fuck yeah, it was like a brick. It was literally like a house brick.
Probably,
like a house brick. Massive.
Must have weighed like 2 kilos. It was easy 2 bags of sugar, yeah.
It used to get red hot, didn't it?
And he ripped it out of the computer and threw it out in the garden.
Fuck.
And went, there you go, can't play on it now. Do you know what I did? Went out of the garden, picked it up, plugged it straight back in. Nothing wrong with it.
No, of course not. Solid, those things.
That's how they used to make things in those days. But yeah, he just fucking went a bit nuts. And
was there any games that you'd purposely sneaked out, sneaked in, knowing full well that it was he would have gone, no way?
Nightbreed?
Of course,
Definitely had to play that on the slide.
Definitely.
What a game.
Barbarian, I used to sort of play a bit on the slide.
Oh, Barbarian, that was
the
cool.
one,
That's the one.
What was the one with the knights where it was really violent?
I was just going to say this, Moonstone.
Yeah,
See, that was intrinsically Amiga, wasn't it? That was intrinsically British, and it was only out for the Amiga and the ST. But again, it was massive. It was a massive game over here, that.
Was that knights chopping each other's heads off?
Limbs, everything,
right.
A whole lot. And you'd have to fight beasts that would just snarl the living shit out of you. It was just amazing. And again, it was a quest thing, wasn't it? You could have teams, and you'd quest. See, what games can you remember that were intrinsically British, that are classics, and they were just amazing on the Amiga?
Everything ever made by Sensible Software.
They were good.
And then we are talking about one of the best games ever.
See, I couldn't get into Sensible Soccer.
Is it going to be the same one that I'm
Sensible
thinking
Soccer.
of?
I couldn't get into
just Sensible
it.
Soccer. Okay.
Just Sensible Soccer.
Okay.
It is still just ultimately playable. Like, you can just pick it up, and I get it if you like. Paul doesn't like football.
It's not just that. I mean, I got on with the side-scrolling ones like Kickoff and things like
Kickoff
that. I didn't
vertical,
mind.
but,
It was vertical. Which one's the side?
Match Day.
Match Day. I got on with Match Day.
too.
In fact, no, Kickoff I actually quite like. I know the vertical one. I actually quite like that one.
There was Man United in Europe, and then John Barnes' International Soccer. They were 2 sideways scrolling ones.
Wasn't Sensible Soccer just made as kind of a challenge for somebody? Like, somebody saying to somebody, I bet you can't recreate the physics of a bouncing ball across a football field.
Probably.
Or something.
Sounds about
The
right.
guy that developed it
If I
took up the challenge and made Sensible
I
Soccer.
don't know enough about Sensible Soccer to know if that story's true, but I think I know enough about Sensible Soccer to say it's probably not true,
Right.
just because how into the guys that made Sensible Soccer are into football.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe it's false. And
For me,
Special mention for Sensible Soccer is Sensible Golf is a very good game.
Okay.
And Megalomania. There are other
Did
really
they
tentpole
make
games.
the one about war? What was that one? Top down.
Oh,
Cannon Fodder.
Cannon Fodder.
Sorry,
Yes.
totally forgot about that. Cannon Fodder is a very, very good game.
Is that
as well.
Sensible Software?
Yeah.
It looks like it would be. So yeah. Okay.
Well,
That was amazing.
For me, Supercars 2 wins every time.
Yeah, Supercars 2 is a really good game.
What was Supercars 2?
Awesome. Just ridiculous racer.
Top down.
Okay.
But the track top down, but the track was big enough that it didn't all fit on one screen. So it's
Right.
not like Ivan. What's the
Iron
one?
Man Off-Road Racer.
Ivan.
Ivan the Iron Man Off-Road Racer.
Yes.
That's it.
See, that's a really good game. That's a port of an arcade game. Do you remember that?
With tracks
Toyota
that took you
Hilux
up
truck
in a...
racing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like Nissan truck and Toyota truck racing, but like on mud with jumps. But it all fitted on one screen.
Ah, yes.
The closest comparison I would
that
say
game.
is
My God.
Lotus Esprit, but top-down version instead of rear view, and you can shoot missiles and leave
drop mines and
mines
stuff.
and all sorts of shit.
What was that one?
This is Supercars 2, this one.
Supercars 1's
2.
really good as well.
Yeah,
Was there not another game? Road Blasters.
Road Blasters
That
was
similar
alright.
to that,
It was
wasn't
okay, but Supercars 2 just nailed it.
Okay.
It's just the way it moves.
While we're talking about car games, the other great Amiga car game, Stunt
Outrun?
Car
I know what you're going to
Racer.
say. Stunt Car Racer was brilliant.
Stunt car racer. So is that the one with the tracks that go up on like big
That's
ramps
the
and
one
things?
where you're basically
You could build your own, couldn't
driving- You're basically driving a car on a roller coaster.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the one.
It's
Yeah.
a drag. Yeah, it's a drag car, isn't it? And yeah, it's ridiculous. All you can see is the front engine, these
Yeah.
flames, and they're just pretty much on a roller coaster. And the mechanics in that game, you feel like you're falling when you're playing that. It's still even today.
I do remember
you
it. I don't
it's
think I played it. I
Brilliant.
certainly didn't play it as much as Outrun. Outrun was amazing.
Another British developer that needs to get a special mention is Team 17.
Oh yeah. What
Yeah.
did
They're
they
still
make?
going as well. Worms.
Oh yeah,
Worms.
man.
And we
Worms.
spoke about earlier, Alien Breed.
Alien Breed was a huge one, and then Full Contact as well. Do you remember that
Full
one?
Contact's a very good fighting game as well.
Which
Is
one
it
was
as good
Full
as IK
Contact?
Plus though?
It was pretty. It was like IK Plus, only plus, wasn't it?
IK Plus is the one with just two guys, right? Red and white.
No,
wasn't it?
that
Was
IK
it
Plus
three?
is the one with three guys.
Yeah.
Okay, you're on the
What's
screen
the
at
weird
the
thing?
same time.
And you
made
could
their
have
trousers
three.
fall down,
Yeah.
couldn't you?
You could. You could. Yeah, you could. It was a button you could press.
But that's why, again, that's the thing. I bought my Amiga second hand, but everyone would come around my house because I had all the bits.
The
that-
copies.
like, I think the guy, well, he would have been a young adult that we bought the Amiga off of.
Yeah.
Had obviously his family were affluent enough that he must have had enough expendable income to buy all the bits that you would have spent on a game, or
Yeah.
you would never. You would have. It would have got to Christmas and you wouldn't have gone, can I have the 4-way joystick adapter? He had all that, so I had all that because I bought it all second hand off him. So I remember playing. I really have a vivid memory of playing 5-player Bomberman, and I've played 5-player Bomberman for the first time on the Amiga because I had
Shit, I didn't know that was
4
possible.
joysticks and somebody on the keyboard.
Didn't know you
Wow.
could do that.
Cool. I don't think I ever played Bomberman on the Amiga. I think the first system I ever played it on was Super Nintendo.
The closest I ever got to that was probably either Rampage or Gauntlet on 3-player. Because you'd have
Gauntlet.
one person on keyboard and then 2 on joystick.
Gauntlet was amazing as well
Yeah.
on the Amiga, wasn't
I
it?
think
Yeah.
it was quite easy to play Gauntlet 3-player just on the Spectrum though, wasn't it? Because most people's joystick adapter had 2 joy ports, didn't it?
Yeah, I don't know if
And
it
then you
supported all 4
Did it
players.
not,
I don't
did
know.
not even Gauntlet 2 not support like a third person on the keyboard?
May have done. I think.
But it's always a challenge to like that. You just don't think about it now. You just
No.
got wireless controllers. You
Yeah.
can just connect.
Off you go.
Bloody hell, there's games out now that don't even need a controller. You just connect your phone to a web page.
It's fucking mad.
And then we're going, it's like, it was impossible to get 2-player games going on certain systems. Like, Sensible Soccer on the PC was brilliant because it had a hard drive. Just when you ended the season, it ended really quickly and you didn't have to go away for 20 minutes. Like on the Amiga, Sensible World of Soccer, when the season finished, because it played so many matches and had to calculate all the leagues and stuff, it took like 20 minutes. On the
Wow.
PC, it literally went like that.
Okay.
But the problem with the PC is its joystick port was partly sound card.
Right.
So people just didn't have the money to go and buy 2 sound cards and set them up right to have 2-player sensible soccer. So I got
Interesting.
really good at sensible soccer on the PC by playing on the keyboard because nobody else would play on the keyboard.
I can understand why. It's really, the movement in that game, you had to be really precise, really spot on to keep control of the ball.
To be honest, they brought it out on the Xbox 360 and it doesn't even play right on a modern controller.
Right.
You need that micro-switched, non-analog movement that you got with the old Amiga joysticks. Yeah, if one of your mates had a shitty joystick that didn't have micro-switches in, God, were they rubbish. Like, they'd just make that horrible sort of soft contact like the old Atari joypads. And
Yeah.
you'd just be like, oh, mate, go and get a better joystick. Like, go and get any Competition Pro. Oh, some of the early some of the cheap Competition Pros didn't have a micro-switches in.
Nope.
Right.
To get the fancier one, and then they had the really cool joysticks where you could tension up the stick as well.
Oh, see, that's out of my league.
What were the ones, the green, yellow, and pink joysticks? They were quite good for a period of time, weren't they?
Yeah, they
were
they
they had a
they were pro one, weren't they?
micro-switch,
Something
but I don't
pro.
think they were competition.
They weren't. What are they
So-
called?
Green base, like yellow stick, pink
No,
buttons or something.
They have
green
all
base,
the
pink
90s
stick,
neon on
yellow
them.
buttons.
Yeah, none of the ones.
But the good thing back then as well, every controller had the same input, didn't it? So
Yeah.
these, like, you could a Mega Drive
It's a
controller
9 pin.
work
Was it
on
9 pin or 12 pin or something?
Yeah, but they were
Yeah.
wired the right way as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
So you just get a Mega Drive. You could just get a joystick and plug it in a Mega Drive,
Yeah.
or get a Mega Drive controller and plug it into it.
Right.
And you were shit if you didn't have a
Amiga.
transparent one. If you didn't have a clear joystick,
Oh,
Fuck
they
it.
did a clear Competition Pro, didn't
Yeah,
they?
yeah, yeah.
Remember that?
you had to have a clear one.
Oh,
Cool.
do you know what I want to do now? I literally want to go home and play a Commodore Amiga.
Bloody right.
I don't know the best way of playing Amiga games. Paul, you'll probably say it was a Raspberry Pi, isn't it?
For me personally, either CD32 or Raspberry Pi. If you get the Retro Pi program, look into it. It can be a little bit complicated to set it up if you're a newbie like me, but it is possible, and highly recommend it.
So what, you can just download these 5 discs that you were
There's
talking about earlier,
places online, yeah, you can.
Oh, you wouldn't even do that. If
download
you
the
want,
ROMs.
you would just probably on Pirate Bay is every Amiga game ever.
It's not even
as
Pirate
one,
Bay.
as
There's
one,
legit websites out there you can just go to.
Right.
But there's probably a torrent that's got every Amiga game
Yeah.
ever in it.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
it'll be like 1 gigabyte or something, and you'll just go pick every Amiga game ever.
Right.
But I don't know if it got funded on Kickstarter. There was somebody was building a box,
It's
and
been given the go. It's actually out.
and it's got an Amiga disk drive in,
Yeah.
which is a special type of disk drive that reads Amiga discs because
Right.
they were different to PC discs.
Yeah.
But the rest of it's completely emulated, so it's like an Amiga 1200 with all the bells and whistles and storage and stuff.
It's actually just
but
come
in a
out.
box that's the size of a floppy disk drive.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It came out. I think it was last month. It came out.
Do you know what it's called?
Is it the Amiga 1? Or is that...
Should we look it up quick?
We'll look it up. It's definitely out there. I know that because you've got 2 versions of it. You can have just the Amiga and you plug in a USB port in the back, or you can get it with the drive built into it so you can play all your old games. But
There's still companies out there with there's a company with the Amiga like brand name,
Yeah,
and
they
the
bought it.
bounceable logo and stuff, and they've been trying to put out an Amiga all the time. I don't know why at this point. To be honest, I love it, but
Yeah.
at this point we're way past caring, aren't we?
yeah, I mean,
Like, do you
just
want to
wanna be
run Workbench or Windows 10?
Do you know what? In the band, because I'm still currently writing all the music on a tracker program. I've managed to get one for the Mac called Renoise, and it's brilliant. And I still use the same method now for writing music that I did when I first started 20-odd years ago on the Amiga.
I'm guessing Fruity Loops came out of Amiga, didn't
I
it?
think it probably did, yeah. It was heavily
Well,
inspired by
Hang on, what were the two
Pro Tracker and then Octamed. Octamed was the better of the two.
Octamed's Logic, isn't it? I think
Is it a tracker? Is it a tracker?
no. I think Octamed
Yeah. Has it evolved
has evolved into Logic.
I
I
didn't
think
know
the
that.
people who made that got obviously bought by. They had a brand change, and
I didn't
then
know
eventually
that.
got. It's one of the two is Logic.
I'll have to have a look into that. But yeah, Octamed I love. So if I could run something the equivalent on, yeah, that'd be amazing. But other than that, I mean, the games you could just emulate quite easily on RetroPie or something like that.
What's good about buying these emulation boxes now is it's nice to have like a really reasonable scaler for HDMI in them, which is what a lot of them do.
They do it very well.
Scale to on your big because you plug a old machine into a new telly and it just looks garbage.
Yeah, it does. But RetroPie does an incredibly good job at scaling that up. Really good.
Cool.
Even the spectrum looks good on it.
Excellent.
So yeah,
and they aren't expensive.
You're looking at about £35 for the unit, and then all your gubbins you want on top, like a wireless keyboard and things like that. You're looking at about £50 for the whole kit, maybe 60.
And then you've got
every
game.
Well, get all
at
the
your fingertips.
Yeah, all the software, all the downloads are free.
Right.
It's all shareware.
And do they run SNES games and things as well?
Everything, yeah.
Right.
Every near enough every console you can think of is on there. I think I've currently got about 40 different machines on it.
Right.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And
that's including
and
arcades.
The top of the range one's like £25, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, what we're on now, Raspberry Pi
3, isn't it?
is it 4? I think now, isn't it? It could be 3.
I see them available on certain sort of like Chinese importation sites and things. Is that okay? Or?
I think so. I mean, I think they're generally made in Britain.
Right.
You can buy them just as cheap in the UK. Are they manufactured out there?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I bought the. Is it Vios?
But yeah, the Raspberry Pi is a British product.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, but it's incredible.
So,
Getting your head around the Linux system can be a bit of a nightmare, but if you know anybody out there, you could do that sort of thing.
My point is, though, it's British products. It's fairly inexpensive, so buy British.
Oh God, yeah.
So
You can
it's a brilliant
probably
machine.
you can probably buy them on eBay pre-configured.
Yep.
With a small premium, but like, what's your time worth? Like,
Yeah,
is it
true.
going to cost you £10 more to just play every game straight away?
Yeah, true.
Or do you want to sit and learn how to?
It took
emulate
me
games?
a good month before I could get the whole system compatible with my Mac on a wireless network, and then find the places where to download the ROMs and everything. It takes you a good month to even getting downloading the games if you don't know where you're going and what you're doing.
Okay.
So if there is a pre-configured system out there online, just snap it up.
Okay.
Absolutely snap it up.
And I don't think it's bad copying old games.
No, I mean,
At this point, some of them you can't even get.
You can't get the license.
If you can buy them, but then it's like, what are you going to play them on? You're not going to buy them anyway. You're not going to go out and buy a 3DS just to play Super Mario World, are you? So, another good avenue for emulation is the Nintendo Wii's pretty good at emulating a lot of shit, but it can be a bit of a pain in the ass to get going.
Right, okay. I've got an old Nintendo Wii. Somebody's mentioned I should do this before.
It's really good.
Don't bother, get a RetroPie.
Really?
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I minced about with. The only reason mine's chipped is it's good for playing GameCube games.
Yeah, I really
all
liked
my
what you'd set up
all
on
my
there.
GameCube games are on my Wii,
right,
installed on a hard drive.
Okay,
which just makes it convenient.
Yeah, interesting. Right, we got anything else you want to say about the Commodore Amiga?
No, it's just the best video game machine ever made.
Turrican, that's got to get a mention. Turrican 2.
First Samurai's
great.
Just going to list off a load of games that you have to go and watch videos
for.
Everything by Sensible Software. Everything by LucasArts. Specifically Monkey Island 1 and Monkey Island 2, Day of the Tentacle and Full
Shinobi and all the games that followed.
Yeah,
I really like those.
But I'm thinking things that are intrinsically just for...
Some arcade ports are quite good.
Persian Gulf Inferno, really obscure, odd one about terrorists taking over an oil tanker.
What was it called, sorry?
Persian Gulf Inferno.
Persian?
No, this one's definitely Persian. And it's got a real dark vibe about it. When you shoot people, you really shoot them.
Right.
Yeah, you've got brains flying out the back of the head and everything.
Cool.
Yeah,
we like brains.
Pretty dark.
I can't think of the name of the game, but it's a weird sideways scrolling shooter where you take off from an aircraft carrier and you have to bomb the Japanese.
Really, Christ.
Little islands and stuff.
It's not US Squadron, is it? Or UN Squadron? Project X was one that everybody loved as well.
Very good sideways scrolling shooters for the Amiga, loads of them.
And what was the Asteroids one?
Games.
What was the Asteroid? It became huge, didn't it?
Asteroids one? That it was an Asteroids game?
No, I know these asteroids, but they reinvented it for the
But
Amiga.
the one with
Blasteroids.
Blasteroids with the big green thing that you had
Is it
to...
Blasteroids? I think
It was Blasteroids. You had a big green thing with a big face on it.
Yeah.
That was
No,
like
there
a
was. I
big
think there was
bad guy that you
another
had to
one for
kill.
the Amiga.
I probably played my first strategy games on
Amiga as well, yeah.
as well, like Civilization 1 I played on Amiga.
Powermonger.
You
I don't
mentioned...
think June 2 came out for Amiga, did it? I think that was PC I played.
Was it
that.
only PC? Okay.
That was the first proper real-time strategy game on that, June 2.
Was it?
Yeah.
And then you got you got the platformers were great. You had
Well,
RoboCard came out there
they're
originally.
okay, but by comparison...
By
they're
comparison, they're not great, but for their for the time and the style, and I mean, some of them were just incredible for what they were trying to do at the time.
RoboCod was the sequel, wasn't it? It was James Pond.
It was
wasn't it?
James Pond, then RoboCard, and then God knows. But then you've got Whizball and WizKid,
Zool, you mentioned.
Zool.
Ninja from the Nth Dimension.
Yeah.
Sponsored by Chub Chub.
Yep.
Literally sponsored by Chub Chub.
Right. That was why you had lollipops everywhere, was
what
it?
was the not Pandora, the one where you play like a Harlequin, like
Harlequin.
clown. Is that was it called?
Harlequin.
Another good platformer. Yeah, there were some good games. By comparison, they're not Super Mario World, but
No, but
they are.
They had heart and brains.
Heart, brains, guts, and they were trying to do something different for a whole other market that existed out there that America and the rest of the world that hadn't been taken over by Nintendo. Places that had already been taken over by Nintendo didn't know about, and there was just so much on there that in some ways was just as good, if not better, because they tried something completely different. It was where they tried. It was a time when on a console you had incredibly good beat 'em ups, shoot 'em ups, platformers. That was it. On the Amiga, they tried to do something completely different,
Right, cool.
and they were trying to change up those formats. And sometimes they didn't get it right. Sometimes it was only half right. Sometimes when they got it right, my God, it was really good.
So God bless the Amiga.
God bless the Amiga.
And all that's sailing. Right,
Yes.
shall we wrap this up?
Yes.
Hope you've enjoyed listening to our
Rant.
talk about the Amiga on just another Retrocast. If you want to listen to another podcast about movies and this week's TV, movie and pop culture news, you could try our other podcast, the Snooze Button, which is released every Tuesday. For now, though, where can we find you, Paul?
Well, I'll be skulking around the internet, looking at weird videos on YouTube normally, so you won't find me there.
Probably Amiga videos, I expect. now
Lots
after
of
all
them.
this.
Yeah, lots of them. But, you'll always find me at my two little shops, Rocket Punch Collectables and Curiosity, which are both eBay shops online, but you can also find us both on Facebook.
Cool. And they're both linked on our Facebook page as well.
Pop
We'll
by, have a
remember
little
to
look.
do that this week.
Oh, thank you.
Cool. Ross?
You can find me looking for a Commodore Amiga emulator now. I'm just going to go ahead and play a Commodore Amiga, I think, tonight.
Do it.
Fair enough.
It's stupid, isn't it? It's like, I'll just not bother going and setting the CD32 up. I'll just try and emulate it. Bit of a challenge. Got the ROMs.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
But-
I just record these podcasts and that's it. Then I have a real job that I'm really busy doing.
And then people can find you online.
On PlayStation Network, if you really want to play Battlefield with me.
Shoot to kill. Shoot to kill.
Kill Ross.
It's Roscoe
Please,
Baby.
please,
Shoot to kill.
please go and find Ross on PlayStation Network.
Absolutely troll him.
Shoot the fucker with a tank.
Yeah.
Please. Be great. Run him over once you've shot him. No
Chris,
reaction.
where can we find you?
You can find me editing this podcast and hanging out on the SNEW with the Crew Facebook page. And, of course, there's Chris Quinton's Music and Things as well, which is really, really close to having some stuff on it.
You're
So-
occasionally on the Mothercare forum as well, aren't you?
Yeah. No, well, yeah. For all the right reasons, I assure you. So, thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time. Say goodbye, guys.
See you later.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Remember, Peter Molyneux said the Atari ST was shit.
It's true.
Its operating system was called TOS. as
Was it
well.
really?
Yeah.